Welcome, my dear colleagues, friends, and students. This is video number 524, and the title of this video is Development Policy Making and the roles of market, state, and civil society. So there are certain concepts and rationale for development planning. There was one time when a lot of interest was taken in government planning, and it can be termed as planning mistake. So in the past, very few people doubted the importance and usefulness of national economic plans, and government used to make a large amount of plans. However, very recently, disillusionment has set in regarding the importance of public planning and policy. So, a comprehensive development policy framework can play an important role in accelerating growth and reducing poverty and inequality. The nature of development planning, resource mobilization for public investment, economic policy to control private economic activity according to social objectives formulated by the government, planning in mixed developing economies. Private sector in mixed economies comprises the subsistence sector, small-scale businesses, medium-sized businesses, large domestic firms, large joint or foreign-owned enterprises or multinational corporations. The justification or rationale for development planning. There are a number of points, and the first one is that of market failure. Since there are market failures in practice, so we need to have development planning. Then resource mobilization and allocation, attitudinal and psychological impact, requirement to receive foreign aid, and so on. The market cannot function properly and no market exists. So there are three general forms of market failures. And the first one is that the market cannot function properly or market does not exist. The market exists but implies inefficient resource allocation. More expensively, the market produces undesirable results as measured by social objectives other than the allocation of resources. Often items such as more equal income distribution and merit goods such as health are treated as separate rationales for policy outside the economic efficiency. So we start with what market failures are. Market failures occur when social costs and benefits differ from private costs and benefits of firms and consumers. Market power, when there is a monopolistic situation or monopolistic situation in the market. So in that case, market fail. Then in case of public goods, market also fails because there are free riders and free riders cannot be excluded except possibly at a high cost. When there are externalities, so agents do not have to pay all costs of their activities or are unable to receive all the benefits. So in that case, market fail. Then we have another situation that is known as prisoner dilemma, which occur when agents better off if others cooperate but individual agents better off defecting. Coordination failures can occur when coordination is costly, for example with big push problems. Capital markets are particularly prone to failures. Market and government failure, a broader argument. Just like market fails, there is also government failure. In many cases, politicians and bureaucrats can be considered utility maximizer, not public interest maximizers. So, we can't jump to conclusion that if economic theory says policy can fix market failures, that it will do so in practice. So, it's not actually the same story. Government intervention may not correct market failure, they may jeopardize market failures further. Analysis of incentives for government failure guides reform, for example, civil service reform, constitution design, etc. Developing countries tend to have both high market failure and high government failures. Some basic models, the development planning process, characteristics of the planning process, planning in stages. There are some basic models, aggregate growth models, multi-sector input-output, social accounting, and computable general equilibrium models. 3 stages of planning. Then we have aggregate, sectoral, and project planning. Aggregate growth models like projecting macroeconomic variables are of this thing, that capital at time t is a function of some constant proportion of national income at time t, where kt is capital stock at time t, yt is output at time t, c is the average or marginal capital output ratio. These are some other equation. Investment, gross investment at time t, that is equal to capital stock at time t plus 1 minus capital stock at t, and this sigma is the depreciation rate, and this small s is the saving rate, and capital S is the saving rate at time t. So if G is the targeted rate of output growth, then the growth rate is equal to change in income at time t divided by the initial level of output or national income at time t. And if we manipulate these equations, finally we have n plus p is equal to s over c minus sigma, when n is the labor force growth rate and p is the growth rate of labor productivity. W plus pi is equal to income, where W and pi are wage and profit incomes, and then we have this equation where S, pi and S sub W are the marginal propensities to save from wage, income and profit. And finally, we have the development planning process, some basic models. So we have some multi-sector models and sectoral projections. There are inter-industry and input-output models, and that can be extended in 2 ways. For example, we have SAM model, that is social accounting matrix, where data from national accounts, balance of payments and flow of funds databases is supplemented with household survey data. Computable general equilibrium models, where utility and production functions are estimated and impacts of policies are simulated. Project appraisal and social cost benefit analysis, the basic concepts and methodology are that we specify objective function, then we compute social measures like shadow prices, and then we establish decision criteria whether we should embark on the project or whether we should leave the project. Then computing shadow prices and social discounting rates. These are a little bit difficult, but calculating the social rate of discount and social time preference need to be done. This is a type of net present value, and the formula is that that is equal to the sum of the discounted benefit minus the discounted cost. So the difference between the sum of discounted benefits and sum of discounted cost is equal to net present, and if we divide that by the by the discount rate, then we have this equation, and that gives us net present value, where in this equation R is the social rate of discount used, CT is the expected cost at time t, and BT is the expected benefit at time t. And if you divide that by 1 plus R raised to the power t, then we call them net the discounted benefits minus discounted costs. The difference between the discounted sum of benefits and the discounted sum of costs, that is equal to net present value. Choosing products, some decision criteria are net present rule, compare the internal rate of return with an interest rate, and then conclusions. Planning models and consistency. The 1980s policy shift toward free markets. Problems of plan implementation and plan failure, theory versus practice, deficiencies in the plans and their implementation, insufficient and unreliable data, unanticipated economic disturbances, external and internal, institutional weaknesses, lack of political will, conflict, post-conflict and fragile states, market economy. So, in order to have a well-functioning market economy, it requires a number of factors. For example, there must be clear property rights, there must be rule of law, that is, laws and courts are there. There is freedom to establish business. There is stability in the economic system, and we have stable currency, public supervision of natural monopolies, provision of adequate information, autonomous tastes, public management of externalities, stable monetary and fiscal policy instruments, safety nets, that is, programs protect families from the impact of economic shocks, natural disasters, and other crises, encouragement of innovation, security from violence. The Washington Consensus on the role of the state in development and its limitations. The Washington Consensus refers to a set of 10 economic policy recommendations primarily promoted by the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and the US Treasury that were influential in the 1980s and 1990s. These recommendations aim to guide developing countries, particularly in Latin America, through debt crises and economic instability. The consensus reflected a free market approach to development espoused by the IMF and the World Bank and key government agencies. However, it didn't always accord with realities in developing countries that were successful. In this box, we show the Washington Consensus and some countries of the East Asia. So, fiscal discipline. Elements of the Washington Consensus constituted the following things, that is, fiscal discipline, redirection of public expenditure, tax reform, unified and competitive exchange rates, secure property rights, deregulation, trade liberalization, privatization, elimination of barriers to direct foreign investment, and financial liberalization. And this is the account of various countries, including South Korea and Taiwan. And regarding fiscal discipline, for South Korea in general, yes. For Taiwan, yes. Redirection of public expenditure for both the countries, yes, and so on. You can see all this detail. Then the Washington Consensus on the role of the state in development in its subsequent evolution. Toward a new consensus, new emphasis on government's responsibility toward poverty alleviation and inclusive growth, provision of fundamental public goods, importance of health and education, a recognition that markets can fail, governments can help secure conditions for an effective market-based economy, understanding voting patterns on policy reforms, institutions, and path dependency, democracy versus autocracy, which facilitates faster growth, role of NGOs in development and the broader citizen sector. Path dependency basically means the past events or decision can create a path that influences future outcomes even if better alternatives are available. It suggests that the history of a system or process shapes its current state and future possibilities. This concept is often used in fields like economics, social sciences, and technology to explain why certain choices persist even if they are not optimal. Let's start with the definition of democracy, which is a form of government in which political power is vested in the people or the population of a state. And some people have defined democracy as a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. It is a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives. Autocracy is a form of government in which absolute power is held by the head of state and government known as autocrat. It includes some forms of monarchy and all forms of dictatorship, while it is contrasted with democracy and feudalism. A system of government by one person with absolute power. Uh, Anocracy and semi-democracy is a form of government that is loosely defined as part democracy and part dictatorship, or as a regime that mixes democratic with autocratic features. Global trends in governance in the period from 1946 to 2008, and there are three things: democracies, anocracies, and autocracies. So if you look at the spread, the democracy, this blue line, it shows an upward trend, and more or less this anarchy, there is a little bit downfall here, and then again an increase, and then there is a constancy. Regarding autocracies, there has been an increase up to this period, 1980, and then there is a gradual decrease in autocracies. Development roles of NGOs and the broader citizen sector. Potentially, there are important roles in common property, resource management, local public goods, economic and productive ideas, possibly other activities that are either excludable but not rival, rival but not excludable, partly excludable, partly rival, and so on. So we can also discuss typology of goods. So there are four types. Along this horizontal axis we measure rivalry, and along this vertical axis we measure excludability. So when there is increased excludability and rivalry, then we have private good, and that is known as type 1 good. Then we have type 2 good, when there is no excludability but there is a rivalry, and when there is excludability but no rivalry, then there are local public goods, and type 3 goods are public goods when uh, there is non-excludability and non-rivalry in consumption. So the shaded diagonal indicates the area of primary NGO comparative advantage in dimensions of rivalry and excludability. When based on local conditions such as government failure, NGOs are in a position to supply public or private goods at a lower price or higher equality or higher quality. They may be found expanding into these non-shaded areas as well. So type 1 and type 3 goods. After this, we'll discuss development roles of NGOs and the broader citizen sector. So other potential comparative advantages of NGOs include innovative design and implementation, program flexibility, specialized technical knowledge, provision of targeted local public goods, common property, resource management, design and implementation, trust and credibility, representation and advocacy. Other limitations: voluntary failure. NGOs may be insignificant owing to small scale and reach, lacking necessary local knowledge to develop and implement an appropriate mix of programs to address relevant programs, selective and exclusionary, elitist and are ineffective, lacking adequate incentives to ensure effectiveness, captured by goals of funders rather than intended beneficiaries, may change priorities one year to the next, giving too little attention to means, preventing needed scale, or find that means such as fundraising can become ends in themselves, lacking immediate feedbacks as private firms get in markets or elected governments receive at the polls. This can let the weaknesses go on for some time before being corrected. Trends in governance reform. Tackling the problem of corruption, decentralization, development, participation, alternate interpretations, genuine participation, and the role of NGOs, tackling the problem of corruption, abuse of public trust for private gain, good governance enhances capability function, effects of corruption fall disproportionately on the poor, good governance is broader than simply an absence of corruption. Corruption as a regressive tax, the case of Ecuador. So this shows firm size, number of employees, and household status, monthly income. So these are micro, medium size, this is small size, and these are large sizes, and this is household status, monthly income. The association between rule of law and per capita income. You can see in this graph the purchasing power parity, GNP per capita, US dollars, and rule of law index. So it means as rule of law index increases, the purchasing power parity, GDP per capita in US dollar also increases. This is a good finding. These are various concepts for review that were